all of you for
Fancy.
All right, thanks, Stephanie. So thank you all for joining us today. On behalf of the ACURE Professional Development Committee, we are thrilled to introduce Mrs. Beth Wueste, one of the founding members of ACURE and the Director of Academic Programs, Coordinator of Record, and Associate Residency Program Director at UT Health San Antonio in the Department of Pediatrics. Mrs. Wueste received her bachelor's in early childhood education and Master of Education focused on adult education and organizational leadership from the University of the Incarnate Word in San Antonio, Texas, where she is currently completing her PhD in higher education administration. Beth has worked in graduate medical education since 2002, working her way through the complex world of medical education and surgery, urology, and now pediatrics. Mrs. Wueste has presented over 100 lectures, posters, and workshops at the local, state, and national level on various topics related to accreditation standards, teaching best practices, medical educator professional development, LGBTQA+ advocacy, implicit bias, program evaluation methods, and resident curriculum design. She has implemented novel curricula and enhanced evaluation across the continuum of GME over the course of 20 years and is considered an accreditation and educational expert. We are fortunate indeed to learn more about Beth's professional trajectory and will open the floor to questions at the conclusion of the presentation. Thank you for joining us, Beth.
Thanks, Denise. It's good to see you again.
You too.
So I'm gonna crank through this, but I have to just say I am floored to be talking to all of you right now. And I'll talk about it a little bit, but ACURE it just felt like a decade. It was longer than a decade ago, and it was developed in a hotel room, which normally that's a whole different kind of conversation. And I was in a hotel room with a bunch of women, like, whoa. And I don't know that in some way that I ever thought it would just kind of keep going in weird ways, nothing to you guys, but more just kind of the battles we fought with AUA. And so I'm so impressed, and my heart is on absolute fire to be talking to you guys. So I will try to crank and bank. It's good to see some of your faces. I've seen you at ACGME, I've seen you at APPD, and I've seen you at some other things. So really interesting. And then some of you just kind of sneak into my lectures randomly, which is awesome and funny in some different ways. All right, so like I said, this is my profession to shape, because I do think it actually, for two things. I think it's a profession to start with. And number two, I think it's up to you, right? And so if you've met me before, you know I don't sugarcoat much, even though I'm a Southerner. And if you haven't met me before, I'm kind of like a spice. You either like me or you don't like me, but either way, I'm going to add a little flavor to your life. So I have no money, because even as an APD, I'm still broke as a joke. Remember, I don't make RVUs. So yeah, that's where we live. This is my squad. Far back in the black dress is the program director. The rest are my beautiful, wonderful, absolutely stunning coordinators. And so I'm going to talk about career development. I gave this talk at ACGME about 6 years ago, and then I've given variations of it since. When I was at the ACGME and gave this talk, it was for 1,100 people, which I thought was my earmark. And then I gave another talk a couple of years ago for close to 2,000. So it was all a bunch of coordinators. And trust me, I still got heckled. So things don't change much. But I really do very firmly believe in our position and our role as a coordinator. I'm very proud of the title coordinator, which is why I've never relinquished it. Because I want us to be honored and revered in whatever that may mean. And I know that that means that we're going to have to tell and show people how to do that. But as noted, I started in trauma surgery, and we'll talk about that. I moved to urology and had really great years with urology, which really was a catalyst to my career. And then I entered pediatrics about 11 years ago, and we'll talk about why I did that. It was a very difficult transition from the surgical specialties, but it has been absolutely fulfilling in so many ways. But I think together, you and I can talk about how do we move us forward, us as a profession, not just as a specialty, if you will. So normally we do a lot of interactive stuff today, but because we're on Zoom, I'm going to ask you to get out a piece of paper and a pen in some capacity. I'm old, I'm a Gen Xer, and I just want you to write down. I'm going to ask you some questions, and I want you to write those answers down. If you choose to share them in the chat, rad. If you don't want to Don't want to, you don't have to. I'm not here to push you into being an extrovert. I just want you to push you into reflection. Okay. So we're just going to talk about a few things and move forward. So my first question to you, when you see this little face, you'll know it's your reflection, is what's your favorite thing about being a coordinator in general? Like, so you can put it in the text or you can write it, but I just want to know what your favorite thing is when you think about who we are and what we're allowed to do every day. Right? Text. I'm just going to keep going as we go. So this was part of that initial talk, right? And so I always start here because I think it's really important when people talk about empowerment in their positions. So I think it's really important that everybody understand we are never born actually feeling empowered. Like, that is not a birthright, if you will. And so all of our confidence is actually a learned behavior. And everyone has fears and insecurities. Some of us really just show them way more than other people do. But we all kind of feel like imposters sometimes, or like we're not doing enough, or we're going to get fired, or something's going to happen. But I will tell you that you're absolutely capable of empowering yourself with some patience and some work, because it is a belief that you have the ability to control the course of your life. So when you believe nobody else is controlling it, you kind of gain this sense of like, what's up? And you're able to move forward with a little bit more oomph, if you will, a little chutzpah, if you will. And so people who don't feel empowered, though, what we notice about them in a female-driven profession, which we really are, is those who don't feel, they often feel like they have a lack of power, right, over their own path, or a lack of control, if you will, over your career. And so when you feel like you have that lack, you kind of get unmotivated. And so you stop making goals and you stop pushing forward, and you get into this rote everyday nonsense, and it becomes a little cumbersome. And you think to yourself, we're never going to make forward progress, but you will. And so the other thing about being around a bunch of women is often when you're really confident, you have a lot of people trying to bring you down. And they may do it by making comments or saying things directly to your face if they have, what it is. But here's the thing. It's up to you to ignore those comments and ignore those feelings and keep pushing forward, because the empowerment that you'll put into this position and this profession is solely driven by you, period. Nobody else is going to give it to you, right? And so you get to determine the course of your own future. And that's a big deal. That's a very cool thing to have happen. So the next self-reflection I want you to answer is, what gives you power in your position? Like, where do you feel powerful when you show up? And it can be any number of things, right? It can be your organizational skills. It can be your interprofessional skills. It can be that you know everything on the planet, like Verna Roller does in her institution. So everyone goes to her. And that's a cool feeling of power to have. And then what skills make you feel confident in your position? Like, what do you feel like you do really, really well that you can then impart onto other coordinators, maybe new coordinators, or maybe just the average Joe walking on campus, right? And then what do you feel like you have control over? So that's really the important question to answer, right? What do I control? So do I control my time? Do I control my day? Do I control my emotions? Do I control what the ACGME is going to do? What do you think you control? And then we'll start moving, because the answers to these questions will actually most likely be your next step in the position, oddly enough, or it will definitely be how you sell yourself into the next spot. So I want to just briefly, I don't know the ages of those on the call, meaning how long you've been a coordinator. I've been a coordinator forever, it feels like. So when I very first started, I took dictation for my surgeons, and I had a typewriter, and all charts were paper. We had no EMR. There was no ARIS, there was no NRMP, there were no portfolios, there were no duty hours. It was like the Wild West. We used to have phone calls that said, my dad's a doctor and your dad's a doctor, and can I be a doctor for you for a year? And you take a resident for a year, and then they go train somewhere else for the next year. So there was no there was an ACGME, but nobody really knew who or what, or nobody knew anything, right? Kind of interesting. But so I often hear when I talk to coordinators, specifically new coordinators, that they often say, nobody knows what I do. Right. And that's really interesting, because I don't think a lot of us know what residents actually do half the time, except sit in the room. Right. Or the one I hear more often is, I am treated like a secretary. That's what I hear a ton, more than anything. I also hear we need to come together and create a standard job description. We'll talk about that in a minute. That is probably one of my biggest pet peeves personally, but it's to each their own. And then we need to ask for more pay. And I agree. And so even as far as stating that HRs and ACGMEs need to work together to begin pushing us into different levels. And so I agree with some of these, but I feel like often the coordinator who's saying the comments isn't actually familiar with what we did and what we've done and where we've come from. And so I think it's really important to understand that. So we have a shared knowledge. And then as we push forward, we're all kind of speaking the same language, right? So I think it's important to understand that our training programs didn't always look the way they do now. They didn't, there wasn't this strict oversight. There weren't these designated rules and regs. In the 90s, the coordinator was in fact called the program secretary. That's what, or you were just a secretary. You were often doing 900 different jobs at one time because the program was so secondary to actual clinical care. And so, but then things started to emerge. The ACGME public opinion started to come in, right? With the quality chasm and different things looking at fatigue in residents and whatnot. As these things started to happen, the ACGME needed to take a bigger role in the lobbying for the profession. And because of that, different job skills were now required. But guess what? Doctors didn't have time to do it. So they needed someone to do it, AKA all of us. So we then became a little more important cog in the wheel because we had things to do that were important for the program and not specifically the other areas. Between 2000 and 2013 was our largest decade of growth still to date, as far as the coordinator role is concerned. And during this time, a ton of things happened, right? We got competencies, we've gotten assessment requirements, portfolio requirements, but what we really had was a bunch of really awesome coordinators. And we had a lot of people starting to develop DIO positions and GME offices that didn't exist before, but coordinators got together and started building groups, depending on what that meant. And that includes ACURe, by the way, during this 10 years. And that what we really wanted was to stop feeling isolated. We wanted to feel like we could talk to other ones like us to say, do you have this problem? And the other person could say, I have that problem. And we felt like we were connected. But what's really more important for our profession is that as all of these different rules and regs came onto us, we now had a special skill set that we didn't have before. And that skill set was accreditation and maintenance and policy and FTE and all IRIS reports and all the things that had never really existed, then made us what we call coordinators. During that time, I was able to work with Deborah Dooley, who was at the ACGME and is my mentor. And we started to create the ACGME Coordinator Conference. We started being named in the common program requirements. We got a designation on web ads that was on paper at the time. We called it a PIF. It's still a PIF, it's just online now. And we started to make forward progress with the coordinator award, the advisory groups, which I was privileged to be a part of. And I'm really happy that I was able to have just a say in some way that this is who we are. I remember having a conversation with Tom Naska about web ads. And he said, what's the one bane of your existence? And I said, web ads. And he said, well, why would you do web ads? That's the program director's job. And I laughed in this man's face. And I said, do you honestly think a program director knows how to log into web ads? I said, the worst thing you ever did was take my login away. And he started laughing and he goes, I didn't have a clue coordinators ever did web ads. And I said, coordinators have done PIFs since the beginning. So it was a really interesting disconnect, but reconnect, if you will. As we move forward, we now have milestones, we have EPAs, we've now focused on wellness and self-studies. We had the new inclusion of diversity, equity, and inclusion because we saw that systemic racism is in fact impacting the recruitment and retention of physicians in this country. And then, of course, if you weren't aware, we had a global pandemic pop off a couple of years ago. It has almost been 2 years, which is unbelievable. But here's the thing about coordinators, right? We are change experts. We don't just do things, we do them flawlessly. And now program directors don't say, what is a program coordinator? They say, who is my program coordinator? Meaning we are now part of that competitive nature. They see us as different. That meaning they can see a difference between coordinators who are good and coordinators who need improvement, if you will. And because of that, I jumped on that chariot and I wrote it as best as possible. And I find that when I help coordinators promote, this is what I have them tap into. How do you become the coordinator everyone wants? So this lovely gentleman is named John Potts. He's a little frightening. However, he did say this and he said it publicly and he said it in the middle of an ACGME meeting with program directors. But as we look forward, we do need to look at our role and the responsibilities and the recognition that that role gets on the team, because we are not just waiting to do support. We are in fact working together to move our programs forward. But if you think about organizational change, it takes 10 years for one change, one tiny change. So think about Outlook, how long it took for everybody to start using Outlook, right? And our profession is 40 years old. That's it, 40. So when you think about that, our change has come so quickly that it's going to take time for people to get on board, okay? Here's the spice comment that I always bring up to people. Is that one of my favorite sayings on the planet is that perception is reality, but some people need a reality check. And I mean this with the utmost respect and without any ill intention to anyone on this call, but it's essential to remember that as important as we are to our program, as are all the other components, right? So no residents or fellows, no job. And what our position is, in fact, primarily administrative in nature. That's our whole thing. Data entry, management, reports, reviews, accreditation, requirements, licensure, onboarding, graduation, travel, college, keep going. Just keep going. And it's on there. We do everything. And they are our responsibility to execute impeccably as the wonderful multitaskers that we are. So we don't just do them, but we do them as an effective and an efficient machine. We take an idea and we make it actionable. That's amazing, right? We took milestones and they went to coordinators to figure out how to use them, how to assess them, and then how to put them in place. So although the term secretary is no longer befitting, we have to understand that our program directors or doctors are in fact also doing administrative work. So this is our job. This is our profession. And those physicians and those nurses have spent decades honing their skills in patient care. And it is up to us to show people that we are as in it to win it for patient care ultimately as they are, even though we all come from varied backgrounds that are not medically based necessarily. So this is a pretty typical career trajectory, right? This is what it used to look like anyway in the 1980s and 90s, pre-late millennial. And it was pretty basic, right? So it depended solely on how much time you were willing to put into it, depending on what kind of foundation you had coming in. And so the various tasks that you accomplish during that life roll into your overall career. And it was super rare to find now somebody who just started and stayed and didn't leave. Like to find a coordinator who's literally never left their job right now is like a unicorn who hasn't changed, who hasn't moved, just doesn't really happen as often as it used to. And then you have the other. So if you're looking for like a title as far as measuring your success or trajectory, you might have more of this like rising star, right? Where title, and we're moving or position or pay or whatever. This is a little bit more probably applicable to the coordinator role that we see often in a trajectory in most professions, but definitely ours. The new normal is this one, right? Where we're making forward progress and then we take 10 steps backwards. And then we go, okay, well, I'll take a pay cut, but that's okay. That's okay, because the next one is a nice steep upward climb as we move forward to these coordinator lead positions or manager positions. And then the safe and steady route is the coordinator who stays a coordinator, never changes, never adds, never moves, and that's okay too. All of these positions and trajectories are necessary for a team, a dynamic team to take place, right? So if you wanted to end up as an associate program director, you might think about moving in that new normal, moving backwards, moving forwards, going back to school, waiting, looking, changing universities, whatever. But you're definitely making forward progress just in a funky kind of way, if you will. This was my trajectory in a very brief overview, and I'm happy to share my CV with you. And I know it's a lot of words, so like cardinal rule number 1, don't have this many words on a slide. But, I've always worked 70-hour weeks. I've never not worked 70-hour weeks. I don't have children. I got married late in life. That does play a part, and I'm fully aware of that. I've always gone to school and worked full time. I've never done one or the other. I've always done them combined. But the difference is what I feel now as my ultimate goal is that I can take a day off and not worry. I have built a team that is efficient and effective enough that we can all take a vacation and not answer the phone, like at all. I'll even blow your mind. I got married on match day and I took my whole office with me. And guess who ran match day? My program director, because that's their job. And it actually is their job because I had done all the other work. They're the ones who had to make the phone calls, right? So that was kind of where my career trajectory was. I wanted to be able to not answer my phone at 9 o'clock at night. So when I started, I had a high school diploma. I was a temp. I had never worked with a doctor a day in my life. And the coordinator quit, and we had a site visit in 8 weeks. So welcome to my new job. They were like, guess what? You get to be the coordinator. And I said, yay. I don't know what that means. And they said, oh, by the way, you're now the coordinator of the residency program. And we just submitted 2 applications for 2 new fellowships. So they're going to do all those site visits on the same day. And I said, sounds like a plan. And we did it. And then I went, crap, I need to go back to school. And we can always talk about that later. So then I moved to urology, and like I said, urology was the catalyst. So Dr. Ian Thompson was my program director initially coming in. He's a very famous urologist. My boss, my program director from surgery, was leaving to go to Mayo in Rochester, who's my very best friend. And she walked over to Ian's office with me and she said, this is your new coordinator. He says, sounds like a plan, man. And I said, sounds great. And he goes, by the way, we have a site visit in 4 weeks. And I went, damn, I have the worst timing on the planet. And I became the urology coordinator. And when I was there, I did UME, CME, GME, LME, name an ME, and I did them all. And I was the end all be all N of one. And back then we had 2 years of gen surge and then 5 years of urology, and we changed since then. But in that time, I got a bachelor's degree. I wrote my first grant proposal that launched an annual symposium. I started going to a conference called the NCERP for coordinators. It was run by a guy named Don Boswell. And that was the first time I presented. It was the first time I did posters, started doing all of these fun things with the ACGME. I started a coordinator committee at my own institution that included, all the bylaws. I joined every GME committee that would let me on, even if it was just to take minutes. I created the coordinator continuity binder that the ACGME still used to train nationally and internationally. And then I met Dorinda Gold first from Vanderbilt. And then Werner Roller came next, and there was a conference in Texas, and this is where the hotel room comes into play. And we started talking about urology coordinators. And we came up with the name and the logo and the bylaws, and then we started enlisting people as subcommittees. And I was already working with we approached TAGME and asked if we could write the urology TAGME exam, and I chaired that with this group of incredible women, and we knocked that bad boy out. And then the president at the time of the AUA called me and said, we'd really like you to come and speak about ACURe. And we want you to tell us what coordinators are. And I was so excited. And then I left urology in a different, interesting way. And we can talk about that at another time. And I actually couldn't go. And it was probably the hardest decision I made, leaving urology to peds, was that right there, because Verna and Dorinda and I had worked so hard to get the AUA to recognize us that it was devastating. But guess what? No problem. When you're a good team player, you have good team members. And those team members, AKA Verna Roller, took it over, went and gave that presentation, and you guys are still here. So it's amazing. You did amazing, amazing work. And I still have all of our original meeting minutes from the hotel room. It was pretty cool when I was looking at it. Anyway, I moved to pediatrics, ended up getting a couple of master's degrees. I started a statewide coordinator group called Action for all specialties. Our first secretary was a urology coordinator, which was interesting. They thought I was probably giving, gifts under the table, and I probably was, because my heart was always with urology. And I joined every committee I could when I went into peds, moved up, started my PhD, thus far 108 workshops, moving on, keynote speaker, a couple awards, and I became the assistant program director, and then the first associate program director in the world that's a non-physician. So all of those fun things in a matter of, 20 years, no bigs. So when we talk about this career trajectory, it probably looked a little more like this and a little less straightforward, right? It was kind of like everybody thinks it was just so easy. And in reality, I was ripping my hair out all the time, just trying to get there and always trying to prove myself as being worthy of a title, worthy of being in a room, worthy of sitting at a table, always, right? Which does a little bit to your psyche, but you move on and you move past it. So I want to know from you on your piece of paper or in the text box, what do you consider to be a promotion in our field, right? In general, and it can be anything. It really can. What do you want from your position? And if it's nothing, write nothing, and that's okay. And what do you want from our profession? Now, I pretty regularly hear that the one thing we really want is recognition. right? That's often really what people want. And if you think about parenting, or you even just think about being on a team, a lot of times thank you goes a long way. And when we live in a thankless world, it's hard sometimes to just keep doing. But I will tell you that your planning will vary by the answers to this question. We don't all have the same trajectory or the same desire, right? For me, I wanted to prove that I was as good as a PD. Is the only role I can't have. So I wanted to like fight as hard as I could to get as close to it as possible, right? That was my goal. I'm a super hyper competitive only child from an Irish Catholic family, like bring it on. And I did it. Now I gotta come up with a new goal. Maybe you guys can help me. I think I have an idea. I was thinking Princess of the World, but I think that title might be taken. I'm not super sure. So when we think about career planning in general, there's some pretty basic steps to it, but we start here. And this gets me. Again, this is generational in a lot of ways, but it definitely is something I hear a lot. And so although the terms job and career can be used interchangeably and often are, they are not the same thing they're not the same thing, and they don't mean the same thing, right? They're conceptually different. So you may have a part-time job to like get Christmas money, buy a new car, you're a kid, you're growing your CV, you need a little extra whatevs, right? But when you have a career, the difference is fundamentally that the answer lies that you have an end goal in a career, right? You have something, you have a desire. When I go work at Bath and Body Works, my desire is not to be the CEO of Bath and Body Works. But as a career goal, I would love to be the chief academic officer of my institution. And that will be my goal, right? So we strive to become educated in certain fields and where we can continue to learn and grow and advance. But careers are about building on that experience and advancing our skills. A job is given to you, a career is made by you. And our profession is a career. It is not to be treated as a job. So when you just look at this kind of basic idea, right? I didn't come up with this. You can see the differences in between the career and the job, right? So we want to be seen as a profession, and I agree, but by enabling this endeavor, we can create an even greater sense of unity and pride amongst us once we can get on the same page that it is a career, right? So you can see that one can work really hard at one side and get paid really well to do a job. It doesn't mean that there's that forward thinking, that forward motivation to grow it, to build it, to expand upon it, right? So due to this, a lot of people actually they care more about a career than a job, if you will. Not always, but sometimes. And I grew up very, very, very poor. My parents had jobs. My parents did not have careers. My parents worked 3 jobs each just to put food on a table. There was no movement forward. And because of their hard work and dedication, I was able then to have a career, right? Something I could dedicate my life to, which is in fact GME and this position specifically. So as we look at this, I think that, people can be very easily replaced in a job. However, a professional career is a commitment to a higher level and an acquired skill. And we talked about the fact that our position requires those very specific skill sets, right? We need to know accreditation, ACGME. We also have to know how our institutions work. We have to know how the personalities of our programs work. We have to know our trainees and their weird nuances to make sure that we're working with them and not against them all the time. We as coordinators are trained very specifically, and we have a very specific set of knowledge, skills, and attitudes that we must bring into what we do each day. And quite frankly, I want a set of coordinators who feels like they're coming in as a career and not just to do a job each day. I want them to come in and know the impact that they have on the physicians they're training, because you are in fact training physicians, right? That's what you're doing. You may not be doing the clinical part, but you're doing all the other. You are teaching physicians how to treat administrative personnel from this point forward. Right? The way you treat them is how they will treat the next. And I've seen it, and I have seen it, and I see it now when I now have urology residents' children coming into my program. And they know how to treat me because I taught them, and I taught their parents how to treat me. So it's really interesting. So wouldn't you consider us now a profession, thinking about the fact that we have these specific skills, these specific educations, that we're really not a job. We're really not just secretaries. Right? We really are coordinators. We do miss a few fundamental things for a profession, but we're working on those at the national level. Again, we can talk about that at the end if interested. But we have taken our positions from a job to a professional career through that longevity, through those skill sets and now certifications, right? All kinds of certifications. So look around you at all of your virtual colleagues right now and know that it is possible to move from what we had to what we wanted to what we are. And that's a motivated group of professionals that set the stage for success for others. So we've made the jump, and now it's time to empower us to go the next step, the higher step, the full professional realm. So when you start thinking about career planning in general, there are 5 basic steps, right? Here they are. You're going to assess yourself, research paths, make decisions. That's the hardest part. Take some action and manage your career. I mentioned that we're going to do a lot of self-reflection. So really, I only want to focus on step 1, and that's you. I want to focus on you, right? Why? Because you are the one who changes who you are and where you're going to go. So I want you to think about these things and write them down. Doodle, draw a picture, write. Beth's way too chatty, whatever you need to do. However, think about these things. And the first one is, as you begin to look at promotion or tenure and or just development, do you know your role? Like, do you actually know what you do each day? Do other people know what you do? Because it's up to you to sell yourself. This is where portfolios come in, and updated resumes and CVs and having bios. Anything you are making for your faculty, you should be making for yourself. If you want to be seen as a professional, you have to present as a professional, having a professional photo, turning your screen on during meetings, attending grand rounds, being a part of the team as a whole, and not in some way putting in your head, oh, that's not mine to do. Verna brought it up earlier, right? Why would I go to grand rounds? I'm not a doctor. Why wouldn't you go to grand rounds? Why wouldn't you go hear what your trainees are hearing? There's got to be something you can take from it. Now, granted, there were a couple of grand rounds in urology I absolutely skipped because I'm not trying to look at the traumatic incidents of scrotal whatever. Like, I'm out, right? However, there is a lot of really good topics there, right? And so do you know what you do? Do others know what you do? And if not, it's up to you to start preparing to get them to know that. How well do you know your job? Do you know your job so well that you can do it with your eyes closed? If that's the case and you're still doing it, now you're just en route. So the next question is, how can I take what I already do and make it better? Make it easier, make it faster, make it less cumbersome. That's the defined skill set, right? And can you explain to me what you do in one whole academic year in 15 minutes? That's your task now. How dedicated are you to developing your position? So I always say, and I've told anybody who's heard me talk, that the best way to learn is to teach, and the best way to teach is to mentor. And so if you are not sharing your wealth of knowledge, then you are just a curmudgeon and you're not helping us. When you start to reach out to anyone to help them be better, you're helping GME as a whole. That is invaluable, okay? So growing your position, joining committees. Hey, I'm a coordinator. Joining committees at every level, national, local, state, in the community, everywhere. Mentoring coordinators out of urology. Just being and growing. Have you done the work to build your community? So do people know your program because of its excellence? That's really what that is when you start self-examining, right? Or do they avoid your office because they're scared to death of you? That's not growing your profession, right? So making sure you have the program support you need by knowing where to get it and knowing that people know and feel like they can come to you at any point for any question without fear. How long have you been in it? Again, as I told the story, you're not going to be an APD 6 weeks after becoming a coordinator. But if you've been there and you've done it and you want to grow, sell it. I'm going to tell you how I sold it. Are you ready? I said it already. But 80% of program work is administrative, right? I don't get paid by RVU dollars. So I have 100% of my day dedicated to my program. So why not give me CCC? Why not give me PEC? Why not give me the things that I can do crazy good and let doctors be doctors? And then when it's time for them to come in, let them do the clinical assessments, the things I cannot do. That's experience, right? Knowing where your niche is, if you will. I know you already do go the extra mile, but remember this, our profession's not on a normal calendar. It doesn't have holidays. They don't care what time it is. Nobody cares if they care. You follow me? So that extra mile might be whatever, might be 9 o'clock. But that extra mile might also be going and getting Tag Me certified, or writing a question, or do something else. So we all have barriers. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but what I am going to ask you to do is I want you to write down a solution. So I'm going to give you a little lack, and then I want you on your piece of paper to write down what is a solution to lack of support. Okay. So as I talk, I want you to write down solutions. Feel free to write as I talk. Trust me, you're actually going to absorb more if you are in fact doing two things, funny enough. So although we talk about what empowerment means, I would be lying to you if I told you I don't face barriers every single day. I have not gotten to a point where this is easy breezy, lemon squeezy. Promise you that, right? Every day is something. So what I've determined is that when we change our mindset and we change our language, so instead of I have to do this, I say I get to do this. It just allows me to go through it a little less angry than I might be if I have to say, oh, I have to show him how to use Google again. This is the 6th time this week, right? So I get to show him Google. So when I think about this, often I hear that program coordinators don't feel supported by their program directors. This is not as prevalent in pediatrics as it was in surgery for me, which is interesting. And that's a specialty specific thing. But so I often hear we don't have the support we need, whether it be by PDs or DIOs or GME offices or whatever. So what I would tell you is find a champion. Find a champion and nurture that relationship. I found the biggest, baddest surgeon in my institution, and I started taking him coffee every single day. And now me and Francisco Cigarroa are the best of friends. And every time I need something, I call Dr. Cigarroa and I say, hey, sir, can you help me with this? And he goes, phone call made. Because there is one club we will never be a part of, and that is the MD club. And it's okay. We don't need to be a part of it, but we have to understand that it's their own thin, whatever color line it is, right? So sometimes we need a champion for that support. Find said champion and network the hell out of them. Number 2, lack of time. I cannot give you more time. I also can tell you now, I'm trying to be nice, is that you got to learn how to say no. You can't keep saying yes and then go, I don't have any freaking time. Like, oh, duh. So best bit of advice I ever had. When you go into your office every morning, the first thing you need to do is look at your calendar and not your email. Okay? Open up your Outlook or whatever you do for calendar and look at it first and start there. And then go to your email, because if you start with your email, you will be consumed with email. And let me explain something to you. There's no such thing as an emergency email. If it is that big of an emergency, they will pick up the phone. Okay? So keeping that in mind, no such thing. Okay. The other thing is realigning your days. So really owning your stuff and saying to your whoever berates you the most with emails, I'm only going to check this from this time to this time. So quit sending me thank you emails and yes emails and no emails. Like, got you. It's an email. Next, lack of money. Girlfriends, boyfriends, whoever's on the phone, we are going to be broke for the rest of our lives. Get used to it. I got nothing else to say about that other than this. There's a national study done about how much money equated to happiness, right? Which I think is odd. I don't even know how you gauge that, but $75,000 is the answer. Who knew? $75,000 was the pinnacle of happiness in the United States of America, capitalist economy, that said at 75K, I could do the following things. Now, raise your fake hand if you make $75,000. Okay, now raise your hand if you make $75,000 in San Antonio, Texas. Said nobody ever. Let me give you an idea. My chief resident, who's a faculty member, because y'all's are still residents and ours are faculty and peds, makes 90. Okay, money and education don't go together. We've never been paid well. And if you think I'm joking, ask a 3rd grade teacher. Okay, however, if you are that underpaid that your family cannot function, then we need to talk about looking at a different career path. Right? Lack of desire. I cannot do that. I cannot give you that. But what I can tell you is if you have no desire to promote, that's okay. Absolutely fundamentally okay. And if you do have a desire, find a mentor, give me a call, find somebody else, go hang out with Verna. We will get you to the next step. want you to write down on your piece of paper one advancement opportunity for coordinators that you know of for a fact. You've seen it happen. You've seen a coordinator move into, and it can be any number of things. I've had several coordinators leave and go to medical school. I'm like, you're nuts. But okay, if you, right? Name an advancement opportunity, just write it down. Here we go. So some institutions have PC levels, right? Junior to senior, assistant PD, associate, wellness champion, resident advisor, co-chair, chairs of national committees, ACGME opportunities, double AMC, AP. I always forget AMI, but AMI should be on there too. GME office, PC. I've never thought GME was a promotion for us, but a lot of people do. That's never been an equation in my brain, right? I've always seen them as colleagues. But director, DIOs, assistant DIOs, what do you want to be when you grow up? Right? Ultimately, that's really what it is. What do you want to be? What do you want to do? And I fight for the title coordinator, and I've never let it go because I'm a type A controlling human being. But I'm proud of our title. I'm proud of who we are, no matter what it is. So I think where I'm coming from this is finding the solution is always going to make you feel more satisfied than finding the barrier and fighting it. Gotta love you some Socrates if you're old enough to know where that reference comes from. The secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. I know where we lived, but we also have to understand where we're going. And we have to keep moving. And sometimes we're gonna have to be a little bit more malleable than we used to be with this new generation. And we're going to have to get used to the new way of doing things in medicine in some ways. But that doesn't mean we get rid of everything, right? So we know where we've been, we know where we're going, we learn as we move forward from it. So career activism ultimately is, as we've talked about, is yours. It's yours to own. So knowing yourself, what do you want? Quit taking what everybody else tells you. What do you want, right? Know what fulfills you in the workplace. So like I said, for me, it was taking a vacation and not worrying about it. Making myself competitive. So again, as a coordinator, I wanted to be the best coordinator on campus, period, hands down. Not everybody's going to say, if you were to come to my campus, I'm going to guarantee there's a handful of people who are going to be like, she is a raging bee. But if you go to another handful, they'll be like, she's the greatest mentor I've ever had, right? Like I said, not a spice for all. Always moving forward. I don't do root. I don't do I know our academic year is identical. I get that, right? The virtual recruitment season has been the greatest thing on the planet because it's actually allowed us to make change that all these doctors are like, that's not how we do it. I'm like, get on Zoom. Which Zoom has been a hoot with doctors, by the way. We can chat about that. Like the doctor who sits in the dark because he doesn't know he just has to move his hands to turn the lights back on. Love that guy. And then constant assessment and alignment. Check yourself. How am I doing? Am I doing all right? Am I happy? No? Crap. All right, let's realign. And that's where we move from there. So my bigger picture was this, right? My education grew as things grew. My broader knowledge grew. I moved up. My goals grew. My network outside of medicine grew. And then inside as well, my CV grew. My promotions began. And at each step, I had a greater and a deeper passion for graduate med ed. I don't even know how I would ever work outside of med ed. I have been offered jobs outside of medicine and I don't know what to do because it's so elite. That how do you step back from the most elite profession on the planet? It's hard, right? But this is how you keep it going, right? And you guys all know how to set goals, but here how I do it, choose what you want. So I have what I call my achievement goals. Those are my 6-month goals, right? And I actually do write them out. Behind me are a few on my board. So I keep some fairly visible. I make a daily goal. Like today, I really want to do this. I don't care if everything else falls apart. I want to do this, right? Then I have a 6-month goal. And then I have my advancement goals, my 3 to 5 years. So I should be done with my dissertation and defend it by next spring. I should walk the stage by next fall. I can be the chief academic officer in the next 5 years, right? Kind of that idea. And then we have your development goals. Those are the middle goals. So those are the in between the 6-month and the 3 years, or the 2-day goals, or the 1-day goal, or I'm going to try not to choke out my wife today. Like that might be my goal, right? Like if she doesn't take out the trash, I'm going to try not to throw the trash out myself, right? Things you work on that get you through each day. So when you think about it, so we actually use WHOOP goals in our residency, and I make my residents set one goal before every rotation. And then they take that goal to their rotation director and they say, this is my goal for the month. At the end of the month, I'm going to walk over to you and I'm going to say, can you please give me feedback on this goal? And we learn how to give and receive feedback, but we also learn how to make goals. So know what you want. Don't make arbitrary goals, right? Don't make goals that just don't make any sense, that you think somebody else wants you to say. Don't contradict them, right? So that often means kind of something like, I want to buy a $500,000 home and I make $35,000 a year. Probably not going to happen. Just saying. I mean, it could, but you won't be in the house very long. 6 areas of life. Make sure your goals encompass you as much as your profession, spiritual, emotional, physical, so on and so forth. Write them in the positive, not in the negative. So like dieting, I want to lose 10 pounds, right? Instead, I want to eat healthy all week. You're going to lose the weight. It's just in how you approach it. Make sure they're crazy detailed. That's where SMART comes in, right? Don't just say, I want to promote. I want to promote to fill in the blank by date. If I don't, date, right? Super, super detailed. Set the bar higher than you're ready for. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? Nothing. You're going to do it again because you're a woman and you do that every day of your life. And then write them down. Write them down where you can see them. Keep them in front of you. Keep them visual. Keep them visible. I have a post-it note in my bathroom mirror. This is the part where people kind of look at me funny, but I challenge each of you to write one goal. One goal for yourself to accomplish in the next 7 days. So it'll be accomplished by next Wednesday. Okay. Use the SMART format to do it and then give it to somebody, but we'll talk about who you give it to. You can give it to me. Hell, I don't care. I'll call you back next week. I promise I will do it. But here's what I tell you. Don't share things freely. Okay. So don't just randomly tell people things. Why? Remember what we said at the beginning? There are a lot of people who will try to rip you down. And when you're trying to make forward progress, you don't need somebody as a barrier. Okay. So don't just randomly tell everybody. Tell the person who keeps you accountable and tells you the truth. The friend that tells you look fat, not the friend that tells you look pretty. Those are the people you tell your goals to. Keep yourself in a positive state of mind. We talked about that already. Look at them every day. Okay. Visualize the goal happening. What would it look like if you became XYZ? Make a decision. Is it time to redo them, let them go, or think about them again? And then continuity and dedication. Keep moving forward in all aspects of your life. They're not going to do it themselves. But what will do it is your own self-empowerment. So it is up to you to make these things happen. So keeping those repeated affirmations, telling yourself you are successful, even when crap, life, pandemics, husbands, wives happen. Children. Build self-appreciation, short wins. No one is perfect. Know that. And we often beat ourselves up more than other people around us do. Take responsibility, own your success and your failures. Often we learn more from the fall. Most adults actually learn more from failure than we do success. Be kind, be genuine in all you do. In general, you never know. So I'll give you an example. And we'll just leave it at that, and I won't get too much into it, but my mother died a week ago, and she was in my home, and my wife and I were her hospice caretakers. She was with us for 3 weeks, and I gave a lecture. Now, can you imagine if those people I was giving the lecture to knew what was in the room behind me? Right? We don't often know what's in the room behind us. Be kind. You don't know what that resident, what that faculty, what that coordinator is going through. Physical confidence. So I often tell people, have good posture, have a firm handshake, give good eye contact. It's hard on Zoom. Turn the camera on. Like all of these things are physical confidence. And they show your boss, they show the people around you, you know what? You don't faze me, even if you go into the bathroom and cry for a minute. It's okay, but come back out as a boss. Stop telling yourself you can't, you can. Control how you speak, filters and appropriate boundaries. That one I'm not very good at, but I put it on the slide for all of you. I'm still learning boundaries. Again, 10 years in surgery, we'll just rip those boundaries right out if necessary. Build a group of positive go-getters. Don't put people in your life who hold you down. Put people in your life who build you up. It's hard. Turn off social media, turn off the news, tune back into you. You'll be all right. Let Go, cues the Frozen soundtrack, Let It Go. My niece, if I have to watch that movie again, I'm going to freak out. But sometimes it's not your problem to own it. So stop owning everybody else's garbage. Your program director, your trainees, the budget, not your problem that nobody knows how to like save money. Not your problem. You do. Lifelong learning is essential in our profession. Never stop growing. Never stop learning. Never stop asking questions. Never stop asking another coordinator, how do you do this? Do you do this better than me? Good. Show me how. I want you all to say no. Say it right now. You don't have to come off mute. Just say no. Say the word no right now. Say it. No, no, no. Learn to say no, and it will be the greatest asset of your life. Do not give your husbands my phone number. And faith. Change takes time. It ain't quick. Diets aren't quick. Jobs aren't quick. Lives aren't quick. They are in the end, but they're not during the process. So remember that. And then I think even more important as we can get to close to the end of this is it is really important to help others. Right? Some of my greatest moments have been being called by a mentee and they're now a DIO. Being called by a urologist that's well into their practice and saying thank you. Being called by people that I was there for, even if I went and let them have my moment, if you will, because they were allowed to have it, because they needed it. They needed the moment. And so that was self-leadership. Being a good leader means allowing others to take it, take the win, setting those goals and helping others set them as well, and then helping them meet those goals. Leading from the middle, the top, the bottom, the side, always leading. Marketing myself the right way and using others to make that happen. Building others up, sharing information readily. I don't know what it is in medicine that makes us want to hide everything, but if we don't share it, it's not scholarship. So share what you know. Creating a positive environment that allows people to know they're allowed to fail and they're allowed to win. Supporting the learning environment in every capacity, culturally, humility, in all ways, and staying connected even more so through COVID, reaching out to a friend and just saying, are you okay? It's hard. Are you okay? Nobody's going to give you a promotion or a chance. Nobody's going to develop you. You have to stop making any excuses for the why, if there are any, because you are absolutely capable and worthy of doing it yourself. Look in the mirror. You're amazing. And I'm so happy to be here with you today because of that. No matter your journey, our journey has been pretty amazing as coordinators. And so I think that as we close this right now, it's that we understand and know the barriers that we faced and conquered by our predecessors. I'm going to read this really quick because it's one of those things. Reevaluate our current needs and pathways for obtaining recognition and begin career planning to head into the next era of growth for our profession. Just as in previous years, we must know and show those around us that are not familiar with our role, what we do and how well we freaking do it. Just as any other professional field, we must prove we know our position and can truly become change agents for positive outcomes. We must prove to our GME colleagues that we are just as invested in patient care outcomes, quality learning environments, and the future of healthcare as our doctor partners. Professional empowerment begins with you. After you've determined your barriers to advancement and set your goals, you can begin to build the solutions in creating a more supportive working environment. If you've determined there's a shortage in opportunities, search out the right one. And if it doesn't exist, build it, make it, become the first of something. The world will be full of deficiency in supporting working environments, but if you are self-empowered, you'll immediately begin to empower those around you. Once that occurs, the support you need to advance, to build solid, high-functioning teams, and to create overall success will come with ease. Professional empowerment and advancement are both a personal journey. The milestones you reach are up to you, and I already know you're going to be successful. Thank you, guys. All right, now you can ask questions if you have any. If you don't, that's okay too.
Feel free to unmute anyone if you have any questions. That was amazing, Beth. I've been around a long time too, and I can actually remember the day when my program director said to me when I said something about my job, and he said, "Are you talking about your career?" And it hit me like a thunder or like a lightning bolt. So yeah, this is a career, people.
Yes, it is. And it's an interesting career. And you know what I'll tell you, it's really interesting. They're more afraid of us than we are of them. It's kind of like spiders. And and I mean it, right? So if you think I'm kidding, go to an ACGME meeting and just sit at a table filled with doctors. Okay. It's my favorite thing to do, especially if they're site visitors. Even better. Got lots of pictures. And I'll just sit down. You got your little name tag on, but at ACGME, it doesn't say like MD, PhD, whatever. It just has a name, just Beth. And so I sat down and they're like, Beth, where are you from? I'm like, Texas. They're like, what do you do? I'm like, peds. And we start talking and then I'll say, they'll be chat and I'll say, well, I'm a coordinator. And they'll go, oh, can you tell us how to do da 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 da? I'm like, wow, this goes everywhere, right? The harder part is trying to explain what you do to non-GME people. Like when you're like your family reunion, right? And then they're like, people are like, well, what do you do? And I'm all, So now I've just gotten down, even my wife goes, she trains baby doctors. Funny enough, they are baby doctors, but they're also baby doctors, right? They're pediatricians. So it kind of works both ways, right? I train baby doctors. You train them in what? I'm like, how to be normal human beings, right? How to give eye contact and how to fill out paperwork and that they have to do like a timesheet and here's how you do your taxes and like all those things. But I also teach and I teach faculty how to be normal people too. I'm looking at the tech. I'm looking at y'all's chat. It's cracking me up. Yes, you can be in charge of the PEC and the CCC. Y'all already are. Just tell me what the title. Any other questions as I look at these? Working with
Beth, I'd like to thank you very much for this talk. It was fantastic. I also have been working in this from paper applications and from when we were secretaries. In fact, when I started, it was just a job. I started as a receptionist, and
nice.
6 years later, I've moved all the way up like this. But we talk a lot about how the trajectory of all of these rules and how this has evolved from being a job to a career. And we all know that because we're all dealing with all of these new deadlines and all this expectation. What I find interesting when I talk to a lot of other coordinators, not all of them, but some of the ones that reach out to me as ACURe president, how many full faculties refuse to accept any of this as having any impact on their coordinator. And it's unconscionable, really, because everybody knows that the job is harder, but you still see a lot of marginalization and lack of collaboration and lack of sort of accepting the coordinator as part of a really integral part of a team. And in fact, when we have the next Society of Academic Urology board meeting, if I'm asked to present, I'm going to be bringing this up because, they're starting to recognize ACURe as a valuable authority for coordinators. And so it's almost like shame on you if you can't accelerate to what, because a lot of coordinators are really held back, made to feel less than, and it's not just the salary. It's not even about the salary at all, to be honest with you. It's about the being part of a professional team and being expected to do career work, but being treated like a replaceable, line item job employee. So, and I think that circles back to what you said about having to basically represent yourself, and having to step out of and have that uncomfortable conversation if you need to. For us, it's probably easy because zero filter and I'm getting older. So a lot of the platitudes are getting tired.
I'm like, I dare you to fire me during interview season.
Exactly. Like,
Sure, okay. I'll work from home. I'm like,
believe in yourself and say the thing that, like, Stephanie and I were having a conversation about something like this, but when the chairman or the program director has an event or some kind of a thing for the residents and doesn't invite me just compulsory, I literally call them up and chew them out for it. Why?
How many of you got celebrated on GME Professional Day?
I did.
Yeah. Okay, right?
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. That one cracks me up. God bless AMI. Man, AMI's going to come hard. There's a significant difference in specialties. So okay. The surgical specialties and the primary care specialties are very, very different as human beings. And so I will give you It doesn't mean it's impossible. You guys wouldn't have a cure if it was impossible. Let's be real. Because I just showed up and was like, sup, Daddy Thompson said, I can do this. Right. Again, finding that right champion also helps, right? Knowing people is going, and it helps doctors too. Think about how they get into residency, right? They know people. So some of them, some are just legit good applications. When I moved to Peds, I had a really difficult time. More with the residents than the faculty, because the residents are very much supported in taking their sick days, very much supported in having babies during residency. And things are put around these women and men to support them in that. And that I had to realize that I had come in with a really toxic feeling, because I had been in surgery for so long that I was judging these people if they took a day off because they were sick, or if they had a baby during residency. And then I joined the ACGME wellness group and realized how many surgeons were killing themselves every year because of that. And then I realized I was a part of that, because I don't know how many times I looked at a resident and said, if you don't like it, maybe you should get a job at Starbucks. Like, I knew shit about shit. I'm sorry, but true. I didn't make it through med school, my friends. Okay. And I didn't have to go sit on a residency floor and watch people die in my arms either. And so I had to change my mentality. And when I came into Peds, and then I realized how much more successful these pediatricians were, because they understood self-care, that they were actually able to give more to their patients and to their patients' parents. So if you have children, you know what a pediatrician's like. But I had to really get around this whole, like, taking a sick day and having self-care and having a wellness committee and things, but them still working 80 and 90-hour weeks, right? It's not like that changes. And so I had to, it's perspective. But when I got into Peds, I also realized that the way that they look at their coordinators are very different. So pediatric ACGME did this very large internal, so you don't know, call to all specialties to talk about the new common program requirements, specifically the FTE allocation for coordinators. And it was a big legality, and 2 people from every specialty were asked to represent the entire specialty. So I was very honored, and I was the coordinator for Peds who was represented to write this memorandum. And then I got to go to this panel. It was all on Zoom, and you had like all the ACGME there, and you got 4 minutes or something ridiculous to state your case as to why coordinators should be allocated specific FTEs, right? Peds and internal medicine were the only 2 specialties that showed up and asked for 2 things: full FTE requirements by number of residents, okay? And that they change our title from coordinator to educational specialist. There are 63 specialties in this country. 61 specialties showed up and said it didn't matter to them. So when you think about that, we have a lot of work to do in the medical part, in the doctor part, right? Which is exactly what you're talking about, which will take us. But Pete sat there and said, these are educational specialists. We couldn't do our job without them. They are a part of our team. They are this, they are that, they are this. The only assistant program and associate program directors that are coordinator ups are in Peds. So me moving to Peds was a career move, even if it was a very difficult specialty move for me, right? It would have allowed me to be seen as an equal. And I am absolutely, and I mean it, I'm absolutely seen as an equal. Do I still face barriers? Absolutely. I'll get on big calls and I'll have doctors be like, you're an APD. And I'll be like, you're an APD? All right. And then they'll be like, uh-huh. And I'll go, do you want to go battle of wits? Because we can do this. Right. And so I think it's just one of those things. And I'm not telling all of you to come to Peds. I have a position open. But if you do want to come, call me. But I do think you're actually doing a good job in urology. What's that?
San Antonio is so awesome.
It is, and I'm paying 65 G's a year. So
Riverwalk, I'm there. Let me get a flight.
There you go. 65 G's a year and free health insurance for you and your family. Welcome to UT. But I think that you guys have made a really great step forward. I have nothing but admiration for all of you. Every time I go to a multi-specialty meeting and I have a urology coordinator come to me, my heart bursts. It absolutely bursts. My love is so much more for urology than it was surgery. And I think that was just because I was scratching my way through surgery, right? Like I had no idea what was happening most of the time. And they were just such assholes. And they were horribly mean to me. I mean, horribly mean. All of my worst stories were from there. And all of my better stories were urology. So, and then pizza's been pretty great. I'll quit talking about myself. Does anybody have any questions? I know you guys are 6 minutes over. Thank you. I don't know. I'm sure you have things to do today, but
Hey, hello, can you guys hear me?
yeah.
Hi, I'm Megan. I'm with Urology at Houston Methodist.
Hi,
And
Megan.
I just had, hi, I had a question. What did you get your degrees in?
Sure. So I got an associate's in American Sign Language, a bachelor's in early childhood education and reading recovery. My first master's was in adult education. My second master's was organizational leadership, and my PhD is in higher education administration.
Thank you.
Of course. And my dissertation, this is what people often ask me, what are you writing your dissertation on? Is I started a program called the Nurse Buddy Program about 7 years ago, and all my interns are matched with a nurse for a year, and they learn how to, be a respectful human being to their nurse colleagues. And so they spend a year together, and they do didactics and they do social events. We've reduced our turnover of nursing by almost 60%. And so I'm doing a mixed method study on what that looks like now that my pediatricians are in practice. Like I'm looking at the graduates to see if they've actually taken those skill sets into the workplace so they know how to respect their nurse colleagues. So I just kind of grabbed GME by the short and longs and took care of it. But I have days I don't want to come to work. I can be honest. There are things I hate. Like, you know what I hate? The double AMC GME track. I hate doing it. I don't know why. It's not hard. I also hate filing. Like I really, really, really hate filing. I got to drink before I file, I'm like, ladies, let's go to lunch. Let's have some margs. This is San Antonio. You're allowed to drink at lunch. I'm kidding. You're not.
I'm coming. I want the job first. None of you can take that job.
And but
There's no ocean, Shannon, there.
No, 3 hours. We have 3 hours to the ocean.
From the ocean. Do you think I ever see the ocean? I might as well be 10,000 miles away from the ocean.
And I saw a UCSFer on here earlier. I'm going to be there in a couple of months. I'd love to say hi to you if you're there. I don't know if she's still here, but no, we're 3 hours from the ocean. But see, if I look at Maria down at my bottom, who's one of my buddies from Baylor, she's pretty close to an ocean too, and that means hurricanes. So she didn't have power and I did. So, potato, right? We have better tacos.
Not on the owls.
The cactus margaritas too.
Done.
Whatever cactus blossom, whatever that thing is.
That's it. We have 3 weeks off a year for Fiesta, so it's kind of great. All of the kids get out of school. It's I
only know it from the AUA years ago when they had it in San Antonio.
Come on down.
It was awesome. Look at me all excited as if this is even real.
So Cody, DeSaulniers. So close, huh?
It's DeSaulniers.
DeSaulniers. Oh, look at you, French. Hey. Are you the new Dorinda Gold?
I'm the new Dorinda, yes.
Wow, those are big shoes. Well, actually, they're tiny shoes because she's a little person, but how's that going for you at Vandy?
Well, it's been all COVID, so I don't know normalcy, but it's been good. This group has been a lifesaver, and I wouldn't survive without it.
Do you get a lot of, you're the new Dorinda?
Yes.
Welcome to the poor new coordinator who follows us lifers, right? You're always going to be you're the new Denise. No, I'm Beth. Yeah, so I'm really happy. If you guys need anything, I'm the immediate past chair of the coordinator group for APPD, which is Association of Pediatric Program Directors. They are an incredibly established group. They were actually created prior to the program director group. So the coordinator started it and then everybody else followed. But if you ever want to have a combined leadership meeting where we talk to you about what we do and what you guys, if you need anything, basically, if you just want to chat about how to move it to the next level, we would be absolutely happy to do that in any capacity. Or if you just want to come, if you have any pediatrologists, come on down. We have our meeting in fall and spring will be in San Diego. Hopefully. Hopefully. All right, my dear friends, any other questions? I'm going to put my email right now in the chat really quickly. Give me one minute.
And I want to get a picture of everybody. So everybody get on the screen.
I'm not going anywhere.
Can everybody show their pretty faces?
Come on, Verna. I haven't met you.
Come
So
on.
turn on your
Come
camera.
on, everybody.
I need
Oh,
lipstick.
guys,
on.
I look like crap.
need
I told you.
lipstick.
Come on.
Everybody knows what I look like.
All right, I'm gonna say 1, 2, 3. Everybody on the screen? All right, hold on, wait, and I gotta get the second screen because
Maybe
we've
like
got
this?
so many
Wait,
people.
I gotta take my specs off.
Hold on. Oh, I gotta do it again? Okay, are you ready now, Shannon?
Yeah.
It's all about you.
Horse.
Hold on. Hold on, and then I gotta get the
All
second
right.
screen. Hold on, everyone. Keep smiling.
Roll. Am I still smiling?
My cheeks hurt.
Hold on.
Right.
Okay, one more. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
That was rad.
Yay.
Thank
All right,
you.
guys. Thank you so much. Keep kicking butt and taking name and call me if you need anything. All right.
Oh, thank you, Beth.
Thanks, Beth. Much
Thank
appreciated.
you. Email.
And thank you,
Beth, your
Professional
email?
Development Committee. For
I
this
put it
great
in the
job.
chat.
Okay, no, I don't see it.
Did I put it in the chat? Did
I
I
don't
not put
see-
it? I did. Let me do it again.
But we can always we know how to find
Get it and
We know how
send
to
it
find
out to the group.
Yeah, you can find
Here it
me.
is. It's in the
I'll
chat.
just do it again. Call me, email me for anything, especially if you're UCSF, because I'd love to come by and see you. I'm going there for global health, so it'll be fun. Sound good? Bye,
Yep.
friends.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
Bye.
great day, everyone.
You too. Thank
So-
Back
you.
at you, Denise.
Thank you.
EDU. Bye, ladies. I have to sign off too, but that was really great. You guys did fantastic.